Rimuru first asked Gobkyu's craftsman to dismantle the hut for him. Since they already had the materials and everything, they decided to change this place to a resting shack for the gatekeeper. Next, it was time for strategic conference. With Gobkyu in tow, they went to the meeting room that was often used. Ramrus nervously asked, question please? How do you plan to deal with the adorable folk girl and her companions? Rimuru thinks that Ramrus is too nervous, which made her phrasing become weird. Ramrus kept on peeking at Rimuru. And he responded, you don't have to be so nervous. Besides, not all of your words were as humble as you think, even the way you addressed yourself sounded weird. Rimuru didn't intend to do anything to her. If she was willing to accept his offer, he was willing to overlook the whole charade put on by her. But before that, he needed to confirm a few things. Rimuru asked, Gobkyu, I want to create an evacuation space under the Colosseum, is it possible? And Gobkyu responds, I'm not sure if it would be safe to have one directly under the arena stage, no matter how we try to work out the structural calculations. Once any hole is made, it may cause the entire stage to collapse. But if we move this space a little, I think we can avoid that problem. And Rimuru answers, all right. I also wish to build a gate in that basement area. Gobkyu asked to confirm again what Rimuru said, a gate, sir? And Rimuru confirms, yes. Please make it thick and pave some stones to the walls to make it feel solid enough. And Gobkyu asked again, would there be another shelter beyond the gate? And Rimuru replies, no, there's no such need. The important thing is just the gate, right, Ramrus? And Ramrus is taken aback, Rimuru? Could it be that you want to? Gobkyu looked confused and was questioning Rimuru's sanity, while Ramrus was filled with joy as she flapped her wings loudly. Rimuru finally cracked a smile and nodded to Ramrus. Speaking of Rimuru's proposal, it's just simple. He just wanted to have Ramrus to build a dungeon and let her manage it. Rather than building the entrance in some shack, they should prepare something more fitting and majestic. Since they would define it as a basement level, it shouldn't be a problem to build an arena on top of it. They could use the arena to train rookies during off days, and he had planned to have a potion shop on the premises. If they ran an underground labyrinth like that, adventurers who were done with their business might grab a drink on their way home, so those stores and restaurants would also prosper along the way. They would make money off them, and Ramrus would have a home, a job and a little spending money from him. He would even give her pocket money. It would require mutual cooperation from both of them, but it might just turn into something interesting. Ramrus began to shout excitedly after hearing Rimuru's words. She said, what? Could you be saying that you are giving me some amazing job on top of allowing us to create the labyrinth and live here? And Rimuru says, I guess so, if you're willing to accept that. And Ramrus looked shocked. Huh? Okay, do you mean that I have a chance to overcome this unbearable state of being a jobless shut-in people accuse me of being? The proposal must have been a big shock. She opened her eyes wide, babbling on like she had been struck by lightning. Trainee-san saw this with tears in her eyes and said, this is wonderful, Ramrus-sama. For some reason, Rimuru felt a smile on Beretta's face. Which made him wonder if that fatigue he felt before was just an act. Could it be that Beretta had hoped things would develop this way too? Maybe not, but either way, if he's happy, no worries. After calming down, Ramrus swallowed nervously, and you'll give me an allowance as well? Do you really mean that? She appeared to be afraid that Rimuru would respond with never mind that. Rimuru thinks he would never do that. Although, he couldn't give her an exact figure on her allowance yet, since that depended on sales proceeds. But better put her mind at ease now. He says, I really mean it. The only thing is we won't know how much profit we are getting until we try. How about we say you get 20% of the profits after I deduct advertising expenses, rent and other needed expenses? And Ramrus asked back, be based on that, how much money would that be? And Rimuru responds, well, if we assume 1,000 or so adventurers visiting a day, your portion would be around 2 gold coins. And Ramirs looked so surprised, gah. I get to earn that much money? To which Rimuru answers, that's just an estimate, keep in mind. Whether it can be carried out successfully is still unknown. None of what I say means anything until we see some real, paying customers. That being said, since you are already settling in here, isn't there no loss to you regardless? Ramrus nodded heavily in response to Rimuru's question. Rimuru thinks that, since she came to live here without his permission, and he knew, without her saying, that he'd be the one maintaining the labyrinth. It would be smarter for her to listen to his offer, it would grant her permission to stay and be a way to make money. Ramrus had only one reaction, that was to hug onto Rimuru's head and shout excitedly. Since Ramrus had already accepted it, Beretta and Trainee-san naturally would not object. Ramrus exclaimed, haha, I'm gonna be filthy rich now. Never again will I be looked down upon and get called the jobless broke demon lord. Rimuru couldn't help but laugh at her state. Even upon seeing the silly looks on Ramrus, the loyalty of her two servants remained unchanged. Her sheer enthusiasm for the other made Rimuru wonder how often she had been picked on in the past. The level of enthusiasm she had displayed for the project probably exceeded Rimuru. It seemed that he didn't have to worry about her. What's with her obsession over money, though? Putting Rimuru's self aside, he hadn't heard of any demon lord that loved money this much. Was her lack of a decent job the main issue? That's right, not a single soul had been visiting Ramrus's labyrinth. Perhaps she was too idle and lonely. Rimuru thinks it would be great if they could attract crowds of adventurers to the labyrinth. In order to achieve that, they should quickly come up with a plan to make that happen. They began to draft the design graph for the Colosseum construction. Rimuru's plans were as follows. Outside the west gate, there was a plaza at the end of the road. They would expand the plaza first, then start the construction. Since there was plenty of space, they could also open up a stable for the travelers to rest their horses in. In the future they would be adding tracks on the streets for trains to run on. He recalled planning for trains in hopes that royalty would ride on them. If he could guarantee safe passage for them, he thought it would be much easier to attract richer tourists. That, of course, would not be the only purpose of trains. With them, they would be able to transport large amounts of cargo. This infrastructure would likely also contribute significantly to the city's development. That was what he had in mind for the town's future expansion, so he wanted a spot for the arena that wouldn't get in the way later on. He could establish a rail station near the spot so it wouldn't become a burden for the tourists if the distance were too far. Having a location near the town would be better. Because the tourists would be walking, they would get customers at the inns along the route. Unlike in Rimuru's original world, people mostly relied on their legs to travel in this world. Most people could easily walk back and forth for tens of kilometers. So it shouldn't be an issue to have some distance between buildings. Those were Rimuru's thoughts behind his proposal for a location, but Ramrus had other ideas. Ramrus pointed out and corrected Rimuru, why? Isn't there any empty lot in the town as well? And Rimuru answers, yes, but it's occupied by beastmen refugees right now. We have streets of temporary housing laid out for them. I can't build an arena over that. And Gobkyu added, no, we can't throw the beastmen out of the town. I think development will have to wait until Veldora-sama completes work on the new Eurasianian capital. Where Ramrus proposed, if that's the case, why not have them move into my labyrinth? You can move the area entirely into it without change, and it won't cause much trouble. Which made Rimuru and Gobkyu exchange glances and question if they were hearing things correctly. Rimuru asked, you mean you can move the people inside there along with the buildings? And Ramrus confirms, I can't move living things around without permission. It requires personal permission before moving them into the labyrinth. If the objects do not possess the personal will of the owner, it won't be moved, otherwise anything can be moved. And Rimuru is amazed, are you serious? So you can move all the beastmen's houses and belongings inside your labyrinth anytime you want? Ramrus said proudly, yep, that's the case. It was indeed impressive, and there's no wonder she seemed so proud. After more careful inquiry, Ramrus revealed that this was her intrinsic skill, named Labyrinth Creation or Mini World. As the name implied, it allowed Ramrus to create the interior of the labyrinth. It worked over astonishing distances too, even affecting people and things near the maze entrance. She could even take the weapons and armor off people close by. This skill may seem to be overpowered, but it did appear to have its limits. If the target's equipment had its own consciousness, a sword influenced with its user's magic, Ramras couldn't affect it. But those kind of items are rare, and only few people possess it. She was a demon lord after all, that title was not just for show.